Hey, legends, welcome back to the Mason Cox Show. Plenty in this episode. We got injury, suspension, selection. There is a heap going on, and obviously the first round of finals. We're going to go through all that and much, much more on this episode. So settle in and let's go. All right, well, let's get straight into it. Welcome, Braden Cox.
G'day, Mason, and congratulations. One step closer to that final weekend in September. Massive game, but let's get straight into it because although there was only 4 games to cover this weekend, a lot came out of it. So let's jump into our clangers. I want to start with you because you normally start with me. So what was your clanger this week?
So I rewatched the game, and one of my favorite humans on the team, Oleg Markov, right? The mustache man. The man that's got the best mustache in the IFL. You would think that would make him pretty easy to remember, right?
Yeah.
Over the game and watching back the game, there was probably 3 different times they called him by a different name. At some point, they called him Brody Meyercheck. I think that Adam got called. I'm not sure. Adam, we don't have an Adam on the team, so I don't know how
Adam
we got that one. Something on that. I can't remember. But you got to get his name right. I mean, surely they have the list in front of them as they're talking to go, Oleg Markov, the man with the mustache. Call him Mustache Man if you have to. I mean, shit, he'll probably take that. You can't get it wrong and just call him by different people's names. Here's a heads up. Brody Meyercheck does not play in the back line. I don't know if you know this.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because it's, 1, he looks extremely unique. 2, he has an extremely unique name. You think that'd be
plenty of tats.
Very easy to pair together. Yeah, tattoos. Another very defining feature. I don't know how you get that one wrong. I'm still caught up on the one that they thought Jamie Elliott was Oleg the other week when Jamie took a hanger. It's like, we'll get it. We'll get there.
And Oleg's gone, ooh, yeah, I'll take that.
Chuck that one on the stat sheet. Yeah, give them another couple of weeks and I'm sure they'll iron out those.
Get into finals form, aren't they? What's your clanger of the week?
Well, there was a few on the weekend, but I want to go back to another umpire review. I'm going back to the well because I've touched on a couple.
The arc? No way.
So, but this one wasn't like, it wasn't costly. It wasn't like a big moment. It was just
the opposite of the Adelaide game?
Yeah, it was just a really unique one. And I don't know who saw this, but there was a moment where the ball went across the line through the behinds.
Yep.
So not a big deal, right?
Yep.
And it went well through. Like I'm talking probably on the artificial turf type stuff.
That far back.
So it's a fair way back.
Okay.
And the umpire, instead of just calling it behind, because a player picked up the ball and was ready to kick it in, was like, wait on, I just want to see if it went through. And it's like, I think everyone was like, even the field umpire was like, okay,
I guess.
Score review. Just want to check that it crossed the line. We're going to call it a behind. And then, yeah, it cut to the goal line technology. And I think, they're in a bit of a fraternity. They got to look after each other.
Yeah.
They showed about 4 or 5 different angles of this ball kind of bobbling about 2 meters over the line going, yeah, looking back at this vision, it looks like the ball has crossed the behind of the goal line. So scores on the screen. It's like all the commentators weren't really touching it either. They're like, oh, yes, a bit of a weird one to throw upstairs. But, yeah, I guess
hey, they just got to make sure it works, I mean, they're going to have at some point, there's probably going to be another debacle, so they got to keep getting a bit of experience into this arc.
Bit gun shy, but I think it probably proves that it's not where it needs to be at the moment, but all is well that ends well. A safe call. Let's get it through the system.
Safe call for a behind. We'll get straight into the games. First one, we're going to talk about Carlton versus Sydney. Carlton with the W, 74-68 over the Swans, and the Swan season officially over.
Yeah, and boy, did they have a rough start to this game? I think Sydney basically did everything wrong that you don't really want to do against Carlton. And, respect out, props to Carlton. Played another good game, another good win. It's not like it's a fluke now. They've done it, 11 times in a row or whatever? It's
I think they've won 10 of the last 11, yeah.
Pretty crazy. So they're in hot form going into finals. Sydney just kept bombing it into their back line, and Wiedering had a bit of a field day with it. So, yeah, I don't know. Sometimes it's hard to be a bloke sitting on the couch having a few beers and you're the guy that realizes that the game plan's not working before the coaches at the ground start pulling some levers, mate, because it gets a bit frustrating. And I can only imagine what it would have been like being a Sydney fan.
It was an interesting game. It probably the actual score line at the end probably doesn't tell the full story, I'd say. Sydney obviously came back in the end, but Carlton really dominated the momentum of this game for most of it. And they did it in front of 92,000 fans. So the Carlton faithful came out, first time in a decade they've seen their team in finals. So a massive, massive ordeal for them. And a little feel-good story, Sam Docherty, after a decade of having to wait for his first final, kicked a goal within the first 90 seconds, and we're a big fan of the Doc here.
It was a great start for them. Paddy Cripps had a bit of a rough one. Like, he's still clearly playing, I think, with one of the biggest rib guards I've ever seen in my life. And he got a couple of rough tackles that really he stayed down for, and you could see him like gritting his teeth. So, you know it's not great when you can see them show pain. But, yeah, Curnow held really well. And then, obviously, Harry copped a big knock and, was wobbly when he got up to his feet and helped from the ground.
Concussion protocol for 2 weeks.
So he's going to be out for the next final.
Won't be playing. And another person that's a question mark is Jack Martin facing MRO. But, I mean, let's be honest. Like, we know Carlton's lawyer game is pretty strong, so chances are probably getting out of that one.
Yeah, so he's already appealed it. And, you may as well just walk in, shake hands, sign the paperwork and walk out, wouldn't you? He's got such a good record over him. I reckon... Like, AFL's lawyers mustn't get much sleep the night before they go to tribunal against Carlton.
Well, maybe they do. They just kind of give up before they go in. But we spoke about ARC at the beginning of this. They used it 3 times in this game. 3 of 3 for Carlton, by the way. So Carlton enjoying the ARC on the day. 2 touches by the Blake Acres. And then essentially it was like still not very definitive on one of them. And like Horse made some comments after the game around the ARC, which obviously you'd be pretty pissed, and obviously the situation is an ongoing conversation as we always talk. But
because they loop him a big ball of like, hey, do you reckon the system could be better? And it's like, what do you fucking think?
He's like, well, stuff it into the ear. Who gives a shit? Here's my actual opinion.
Yeah, I think the only thing that I've noticed changed about the system over the weekend is that they're more definitive in their calls, even if the evidence doesn't quite stack up. Like, they were looking at that Acres angle from a million different angles, and you couldn't. There was no bend of the finger. You couldn't really tell because it was in between frames that it would have touched his hand and stuff. And they're like, yeah, we can see from this blurry shot that we won't get in trouble. So
that's good that we can really trust the ARC vision there. But they will face Melbourne next week at the G. Carlton. Melbourne home game, so won't be as many Carlton fans there probably this time around. But like we said, they're on a bit of a tear at the moment. It's going to be that's going to be my favorite game, I think, coming up for this weekend is going to be that Melbourne versus Carlton game.
How do you rate Sydney's season now? They would have had expectation coming out of the grand final loss, started rough, clawed their way back, only made it because the North Melbourne interchange infringement and the Adelaide non-goal call. So those 2 absolute flukes are the only reason that they made finals.
Yeah.
How do you kind of see how that season played out? They've still got a lot of guns in their side, and they're all young.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, they're all young, and they're kind of one of those teams that's got a young list and is still on the rise and still making finals. So if you're still making finals and you're probably that don't have that experience and other teams have, it's good signs for the future. And they're going to be, I think, around for a long time, that top 8, and being able to make finals and doing a few runs here and there. Whether or not they're grand final ready, we'll find out in the next kind of couple of years. And but I think they're definitely up there as far as being able to get games into their players, get the experience, and then from that, they'll have success on the back end of it.
Errol Goulden, another massive game. Now, I tell you what, Sydney won't want Robbie Williams to be watching any future games because he just, bobbed up like a sprinkler, posted on his social media that he's watched them again, second time. Yeah, not what you want. Maybe tell Robbie to stop watching your games, wouldn't you?
Just kick him off the members list. Robbie Williams.
We don't all need to be AFL fans. Maybe
one ticket holder to the last ticket holder.
Go suss out. There's a few teams in the NRL in Sydney. Go moz one of them.
Yeah, well, I think the big question going into this next game for Carlton and Melbourne, and we'll kind of talk about it probably a bit later also, a bit in more depth, but the interesting matchups in the forward line. You've got...
What forward line? Melbourne doesn't have one.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you're going to sit there and say, okay, you've got Wiedering in the back line. He's going to be taking out, I'm assuming, a McDonald if he plays again. And then you've got Jake Lever, Stephen May playing on Charlie, and then no Harry Mackay. So then he's going to get a lot of attention. So it's going to be an interesting game as far as offense, I feel like, in this one. of who's going to be able to kind of break this probably question marks around their forward line. Like obviously they probably didn't have the goal scorers everyone would have picked in this game whenever they played Sydney, but it's going to be an interesting, I guess, week to see how they bounce back from it.
Can't wait to pull it all apart in the second half of the podcast, Mace, as we move into St Kilda v GWS. Can you hear that? It's a big sound, and it's coming from wherever the hell they play footy because they win wherever they go, Mace. First team in the history of the game to win at 11 stadiums in a single season.
In the country.
And that's it. If you go through the stadiums that they've played at, they won at Giant Stadium.
Yep.
Norwood Oval.
Don't know where that is.
They won at the SCG.
Yep.
Cardinia Park.
Yep.
Belrive.
Don't know where that is.
Alice Springs.
Very unique.
Adelaide Oval.
Yep.
Canberra. Ballarat.
Wild.
Docklands. The MCG. They could win in bloody Mars, mate.
Stadiums. They're local footy fields.
Wherever, whenever, they're running with the mantra, why not us? Why not us? Because, a lot of teams are kind of falling over. I feel like it's a really even final series. Obviously, Collingwood and Brisbane have now set themselves apart from the pack, but they've won in Adelaide, but they haven't beat Port in Adelaide. So it's going to be a big showing.
Big showdown.
And watching the game, St Kilda, it sounded like they were in it because their crowd was popping, but that was about all that was popping because, from go to woe, I reckon GWS really had their number. Solid in defense. Max King bobbed up and kicked, 2 in a minute or so.
Kicked 3 on the night,
and kicked 3 on the night. But it was a really, really solid game for GWS, especially because everyone thought that St Kilda's defense was going to be so stingy.
What was the big thing we talked about last week was who's going to be able to kick more points. And we didn't think that this was going to be a high-scoring affair, but then GWS comes out and kicks over 100 points. So it was always going to be tough for St Kilda to be able to outscore that with them being able to leak that much. So we will give some shout-outs, though. The big ruckman, we talked about this pre. We've got the big ruckman, Rowan Marshall and Briggs went at it. And it was a battle for the ages. Oh, man.
And Marshall was on early. Jumped up, got the first touch, kicked it out. I think he did that like 3 times. He had 6 touches in the first 5 minutes and slotted a goal, and it just looked like, oh, okay, he's just going to run away with this game. He's on another level. But Briggs fought back so well. He took a bunch of contested marks to get him out of defense. He won 9 clearances himself on the day.
They won hitouts 35-18.
Yeah, so it was massive performance from those. But they were running around they were definitely big men. They're 2 big units, and they were throwing their weight around.
Imposing themselves in the game, I felt very well.
It's crazy that Marshall had 31 touches.
Yeah, he's a mobile ruckman, as we call him.
That's crazy.
It's him and Max Gawn are just very hard people to play against because they're not only big, but they can move really quick in their ability, right? So you wouldn't think a big man can kind of move in the way they do, and that allows them to get around the ground, and their mids give it to them. I couldn't tell you how many times I get looked off and nah, I'll take on 3 tacklers rather than give the handball, Mason. And it's a fair call.
And I think, I don't know if finals just amplifies the rucks, but I mean, let's have a little ruck love. I think from the first game, Hickey, Pittonet, I don't know, at times when Hickey he probably wasn't performing as well as you'd expect or hope from Hickey going into now it's
his last game.
It is now. But and then this match was huge. Since you've mentioned it in the past about Gawn's ability to get around the ground, it was something that I really watched on the weekend, and it was
crazy.
Shit. The amount of times I looked and it's he's running off on you. Go. There was one moment where you were like, oh, whose ball is it? Whose ball is it to throw it back for a free kick? And then you turned around and Gawn was in the 50.
In the goal square. And I'm like, fuck.
You were sprinting back. You were hauling
I knew as soon as I had the ball and I looked around and he wasn't there. I was like, he is for sure got 30 meters on me.
But it's just smart of him to be like, all right, he's stuffing around with that. I'm gone.
Yeah, I'm out.
He takes advantage of all of those situations. He's the first to run off when there's a free kick called. He's the first. He
trusts his midfielders to get the job done, where he can just kind of piss off and do his own thing.
Yeah,
and it's Yeah, it's pretty phenomenal. But some other highlights out of this game: Lachie Whitfield, 31 disposals, 7 inside 50s. Josh Kelly, 27 touches, 2 goals. Tom Green, not Toby Green, Tom Green, 36 touches and 9 inside 50s were the standouts for GWS. And they got it done over the St. Kilda Saints.
They're so silky still. Like all of those names that you just mentioned, Lachie Whitfield, so silky. Josh Kelly was huge, massive. And every time they were getting a little momentum, he just kicked a goal and kicked it from 50, just glided through. I think Tom Green, he got 770 meters gained or something.
He's a young fella too. He's a future future for that kid.
He looks farm strong.
Jake Riccardi also kicked 3-2 for the GWS. And then a little shout out here because we're gonna have another shout out to a person with the exact same name who's related to him. But Bradley Hill, on the day, I felt like he was kind of the energizer and gave St. Kilda a bit of hope. Because at times it was looking a bit grim, but he was one of those people who just all of a sudden would spark something and just create a goal or be able to create something for someone else. And it's a shout out to him. He kicked 2 on the day and just provided that speed I felt like St. Kilda was lacking at times.
And you can tell that he's one of Ross's favorites because it was just he's one of those players in the 3 teams he's played for. He's one of those players where you wish you had more of him because he's such an elite runner. So fast, such a good ball user. It's geez, we could use more of him. And I think Ross flicked him forward and he made an immediate impact up forward. And it was okay, now he's kicking goals and stuff. It's such a dynamic player that he's awesome to watch. But unfortunately, he was trying to carry too much of the load. Yeah, I think we're just watching the game, not from a stats base. I think St. Kilda's younger players that they touted all year, which is super promising for them, probably weren't quite there in the finals. There was a fair few mistakes and fumbles and not going for the ball and pulling out of a contest and stuff like that, which is harsh because who the fuck am I? But it just
armchair expert over here.
Yeah, it just seemed very much like that. Caminiti probably didn't get the prep that he wanted, subbed out early, then they got a couple of injuries. It just wasn't really going their way on the day. And unfortunately for them, GWS just looks like they are a far more experienced final side. Even though they were probably projected to have a bit of a down year, all those names that you read out before are elite midfielders, well-established midfielders, and I think that's kind of what's set them apart.
Yeah, and it was another big end was Toby Bedford, obviously with the tribunal situation last week. To have him back in the game was awesome. But I think it was kind of cool, both these teams had a massive transition of coaches in the offseason, right?
Yeah.
And both to make finals and go up against each other. It's a shout out to, I guess, what the coach creates in such a short amount of time for both these teams and be able to have success early like that. It's a good sign for the future for both of them. And also St. Kilda wore their 150th jersey. I copped a bit of criticism.
With the little collar.
With the little collar, yeah. I copped a bit of criticism for their 150th anniversary jersey. I don't know if St. Kilda fans were upset about that one or something, but I just thought the collar was a bit of a funny sign.
Yeah, well, I thought it was funny to roll it out for the
weird
big game.
Yeah, I don't know. They're trying to sell jumpers, though. I get it.
I wanted to bring this one up because obviously anything eye related, I bring it up.
Yours truly, expert.
Check it in. Mason Wood obviously had a phenomenal season to date. Copped a big, deep thumb to the eye from Toby Green. Not on. Oh, yeah, Mason Wood made it. I was looking out for a lot of the fellas boys on the weekend. Had a pretty good weekend all around, I reckon. But yeah, he copped a not intentional Toby Green thumb to the eye. I want to make that clear.
Yeah.
But yeah, instant pain, just stopped everything that he was doing. Couldn't give a shit about the game, pain. And went from the field. Went straight underneath, came back out, looked still in pain. Kind of looked, that uncontrollable crying from the eye.
Yeah.
But they threw him back out there, and there was a few instances where he's just it was like the ball was lost in the lights, but it's it was just blind. And so there's a few instances where he was just winking and had one eye closed and trying to play out the game.
That's scary.
Yeah. Did you played out a game?
Yeah, whenever my injury happened, it wasn't per se painful.
But you just couldn't get it back.
But yeah, essentially, so what happens is whenever you detach your retina, you get a bunch of these black dots that go everywhere, and they're kind of just all over your vision. You're kind of what in the world? These stars are just zigzagging all over your vision. And I didn't really know the symptoms, obviously, of this before it happened. So that started happening. I was like, oh, I assume I'll just go back. And then played out to like halftime, and it still wasn't getting better. So I just flagged it with the doc, and then the doc kind of made the decision of like, this is a lot more serious than what you probably realize. So I'm not really sure what happened with Mason Wood. I haven't really kind of, I guess, got an update on it, but I hope he's all right. Like it's a serious thing to have to deal with. And if you're still having to struggle with it throughout the game, like hopefully it subsides and there's no issues with it. But if he needs help or someone, I know a guy, I know plenty of people that can probably help him, hopefully. But yeah, it's not something you like to see. But like I said, if he ever needs anything, I feel like I'm the kind of go-to person, so happy to help.
It is a very interesting one that you bring that up, because I know there is, and I'm not sure if I've brought this up, but there is a broken leg like club. Really? All the players that have broken their legs normally call a player that has just broken their leg and tell them their experience. So it's like Nathan Brown, Gary Lyon.
You reckon Tim Broomhead was on there?
Yeah, Tim Broomhead.
Yeah.
So
Tom Mitchell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All of those guys end up like calling each other.
WhatsApp group or something?
To be like, yeah, this was my recovery. It was good. It was bad. This is what helped me. This is what didn't. But I feel like this year has been one of the all-time years for eye pokes. A lot of eye pokes going around.
Going on.
A lot of blokes needing glasses. We need to get this goggle gang up and going, because a lot of blokes can't see the footy.
For someone else to join.
Yeah, we need to. If you can't see the footy and you're a footy player out there, give us a call.
1-300 Goggle Gang. Goggle Gang.
1-800 Goggles.
The last thing we'll talk about on this game, though, the MCG Marvel decision. Yeah. Now, we talked this previously about the audience numbers. Now, the audience came out to be 68,000. Marvel max capacity 55,000. And we talked about last week whether or not St. Kilda would have rather played this game at home at Marvel, a ground they've played more often at, or the fact that they got moved to the MCG, what's better? And looking at it, 13,000 fans.
Yeah, so what's that? If you say, well, even at the starting point, $100 a ticket, $200 a ticket, pretty handy money. But is it handier than potentially making a second final?
And getting a whole nother game of that many people.
Well, it won't be a home game.
Oh, that's true, yep.
But you know how people are like, oh, if finals are like valuable to the team, you get like more members off the back of it because you won a final, like the first final, all of that stuff. Is that more valuable to your club than maybe an extra 150 to 300,000?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would have been awesome for them to play at Marvel. I think they would have preferred that, to have a sellout crowd there, reverberation of like the roof closed. Like it just would have been a bit more of an atmosphere for St. Kilda and a bit more of a home field advantage, if that makes sense.
They've built a home there.
Oh, exactly. Like everyone knows that that's their home ground.
Reverse dimmer comments.
Reverse dimmer comments. There you go for St. Kilda.
St. Kilda people just don't come here as they're like sitting in the MCG after the game. Just don't like it.
But yeah, no, I think they would have rather played at Marvel. Obviously, knowing the next game, like you were saying, wouldn't be there. But to get through this round, I think it would have been a better experience. Saying this is a lot easier now, saying it with the numbers out there showing that 68,000 compared to 55,000. Who knows at the time what was going to be the end number as far as attendance. But yeah, looking at it, I'd almost say prefer to play at Marvel.
But it would have had an impact on GWS because they've already won at Docklands. So they needed the win at the G to go to 11.
Just to make the nice number of 11 rather than 10.
Well, otherwise they're not as good.
6 of those were local footy grounds, and then there were actual stadiums.
Well, you've never been to Bellerive.
I don't even know if that's in this country.
It sounds like South Africa.
Bellerive? That sounds foreign. That doesn't even sound English.
Yeah. I think
what else was on that list?
Is that in Tassie? I don't know if someone. I think
feel
it's
like that would have been maybe like the
Norwood's Adelaide for gather round.
Norwood, yeah, okay. Bellerive. I don't know.
I think it's
is it the Bellarine Peninsula?
Tassie. I think it's Tassie. Wait on. Okay.
We'll Google it. We'll let the people figure it out.
I'll ask I don't have Siri. Google, where's Bellerive Oval? It is Blundstone Arena in Tassie.
Tassie?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know. Still learning about Tassie.
Oh, yeah.
Are they ever going to get that stadium down there? We yet to find that out.
Well, they already got one. Blundstone Arena in Bellerive.
It's an arena, not a stadium, mate. We'll go into the last game. before we get into the Melbourne Collingwood game. Brisbane versus Port. Brisbane coming out winners 123-75 up there at the Fortress. And now the Fortress stays strong, and also whoever from this Melbourne versus Carlton game is going to have to play through Brisbane to get to a grand final.
Yeah, I don't think that's the team you want to go to. It was always if Brisbane won the first one,
You reckon shoe in for the grand final?
I feel like they're in.
Wow.
The two teams they're versing are banged up, and hope like Brisbane would just be sitting there, just like you will be, just watching two teams go at it, hoping they rip themselves to pieces going into the prelim. It's a pretty dominant team at home.
Yeah.
But saying that, this game, the score, talk about the score not reflecting the game. Port was right in this all the way up to, I would even say 5 minutes left in the third. And it was like Brisbane put on one and then they put on 2 in 40 seconds just before the 3/4 time break. And then that just broke their spirit. And the game was over from there. But they did plenty right against Brisbane. And I think other teams will take a little bit out of it. First and foremost, Ollie Lord.
Absolute Lord.
Ollie Lord. And it was fun just the Lord. There's so many puns that you can play. But he is tall, big, agile, can do a lot. And he played on your boy,
Harris Andrews.
And he kept him very quiet. So his primary objective seemed to shut down Harris Andrews. And he did that really well and kick 4 goals. Yeah. So as in terms of a successful game plan implementation,
something positive to take out of this.
It's wow, that they did the job there, and to a point they were holding Charlie Cameron and Joe Danaher pretty quiet until all of a sudden, as they have a tendency to do, they just exploded, Mace.
Well, Joe Danaher kicked 5 goals, so let it go, let it go.
Have you heard?
It's the Frozen song, everyone.
The more that I hear about Joe Danaher, he's just this little
so
enigma. He apparently he lives in northern New South Wales and he drives 2 hours to training.
Really?
He doesn't have a TV. He just, I don't know what he does, just sits out there in the sticks and meditates or something.
Joey D. Wow. You wonder why he left Melbourne then. He just wants a bit of space, bro.
Not a big footy fan. Just rolls in. Does his thing. You can tell he's not a big footy fan. A lot of those guys that they'll give away a 50-meter penalty and stuff, and they'll be like, "What for?" And everyone's like, "What are you doing?" I feel like he's got that vibe about him. But it's yeah, boy, when he gets onto him, he gets onto him.
He's a gun. Now, another person played really well, Charlie Cameron, 200th game for him, and at one point he kicked 2 goals in about 10 seconds. They were still singing "Country Road, Take Me Home." Before they could even finish the song, he's done and kicked another goal. So they had to start it back over, and it was like you were sitting there playing something on repeat. It was insane. He played a really good game. Bit of speed. Speed was maybe the common theme between all these different games we're talking about. There's always at least one small forward that just put a bit of speed on the game and played out of their skin.
It was so cool, that moment, both moments, where the song stopped because they bounced the ball and the crowd kept singing.
Yeah.
I've never heard that. I've never seen that. It's the most rock and roll footy thing that's ever happened. It was like a concert there. Different vibe up in Brisbane. Yeah. They're I feel like they're more about the night.
Yeah,
it's we're going to have a night out. Whereas Victorians are the footy's the night out. Yeah. Sit there and shut up and enjoy the bloody game. It's far out, bloke. We're just playing a CD. They're just having fun up
there. Is a bit of a vibe up there. Now, some things that came out of this. Lachie Neale, obviously the Brownlow medalist, he had 1 touch in the first quarter, but then kind of went on a bit of a roll, 19 for the day. But Willem Drew was on him, played really well, so credit to him playing against a Brownlow medalist and someone who's obviously a massive part of their machine. Port had a few misses in front of goal. That was a big kind of talking point. Todd Marshall sprayed a couple.
I got a great
one was real bad.
Old bloke at the bar type chat. I love to bring it up. But every freaking time he got it and was having a set shot, the commentators mozzed the shit out of him. They're like, he's the most accurate set shot in the game. He'll never miss this one. Whoa, there it goes.
You just can't say it as an announcer.
If you're a Port fan, you're sitting at home going, shut the fuck up.
Well, now there's some other stuff that came out of this. There's a crowd of 36,000 people. So comparatively to the other games, not as much, but
They
Brisbane
can only
Gabba
fit in
gets
that, man.
rocking though. Like I ain't gonna lie, the Gabba is a place that's like a bit of a vibe. Trip McKenzie, Dylan Williams both went off with injuries for Port Adelaide. And it's going to be an interesting little matchup for them at home versus GWS next. And also, I want to ask you this question. Who do you think's better suited for playing Brisbane at Brisbane, Melbourne or Carlton?
It is very interesting because I think Melbourne's defense is probably better suited to Brisbane's like dynamic forward line.
Yeah.
But Melbourne doesn't have a forward line. And they do have Harris Andrews. So will he just kill them? Interesting. Now Carlton have them all around the ground. They got a forward line, midfield, back line. I'm probably going to say Carlton.
Okay.
With the role that they're on, get up there, and then I feel like that's where it ends. I saw Carlton play the Gold Coast on the Gold Coast, and they looked shithouse. So I think you take them away from the MCG and their fans.
Ooh.
They're a bit of a kryptonite.
Oh, that's a little bit of a
kryptonite.
Nugget from you. Kryptonite, jeez Louise.
What about you?
I would say probably Carlton's better suited for them. I think just based on their momentum and stuff going into finals. And the way they've been playing.
So like we don't do really matchup things. We just do vibe.
Yeah, but I think like Brisbane, like we mentioned before, I think they're not going to lose at home. Like I've got them going to the GF. And they're a team that just is, like they mentioned it, they're like, why not this year kind of thing, and it's they're definitely living up to that expectation they put on themselves. So it's going to be an interesting back into that, and we'll see kind of who they're going to match up with in the prelim after this Melbourne versus Carlton game. All right, we'll go into the last game. Collingwood versus Melbourne, 60 points to 53. The Magpies got the dub.
Magpies got the dub in front of 92,000 at the G. 2 big nights back to back at the G. Oh, and then the Saints game. But not as big, but still
a decent amount. Still over 60,000.
Good try. That was a good try. Collingwood, Melbourne. Collingwood, came out of the gates.
Yeah.
In typical Collingwood fashion, they've had you guys have had you kind of normally get the score on the board early and then kind of just try to hold them off. But
last year it was like we're a fourth quarter team. We're teams in the fourth, but
I like it. I like
getting on top early.
Get your work done early and then see what happens from there. Give yourself a chance. But got on them early. Obviously, a lot of the chat post game was Melbourne's inside 50s.
Yeah.
Like, they got a lot of inside 50s.
It was 69 to 37.
How do you even explain
If you're looking
this?
at that statistic, you'd be going, Melbourne definitely rolled over the Pies.
Which a lot of people were looking at this statistic. Yeah. What happened? How did they not beat you?
Well, I mean, our defense played really well on the day, and getting Murph and Darcy Moore back obviously definitely helps whenever it comes to the aerial side of things. But I kind of thought back to the game. I thought about some of the set shots they were having. And they seemed like they were that 40 to 50 meter
long
range.
Way out,
they're all long way out. So it wasn't probably the ones that did get deep, I felt like we were able to kind of nullify or get to ground and then be able to clean it up and get out from there. But the ones that did take an actual mark and have a set shot in front of goal inside 50 were all the long bombs that were probably less likely to go through. So I think that was kind of a partial reason that this inside 50s probably didn't marry up to their scoreboard, if that makes sense. And they had a few missed shots they probably should have made. Kind of, I guess, led them to not being able to get the score they probably wanted. But it was a shout out to our defense. People had question marks probably over the last 3 or 4 weeks around our defense. And on the night, they stood up like I've never seen them before.
Looked very settled.
They looked so good. And just every time the ball went in there, you just kind of felt like you had this kind of ridiculous confidence that they're going to be able to get it out, or I was like, Quainer to go take a mark or something like that would happen, and just continually kept happening. So there's questions obviously over whether or not Melbourne should go play a Brody Grundy or play Tom McDonald or Ben Brown's also down in the VFL. So they had options for tall guys, and they went with McDonald, who was a bit quiet in the first half and then had a few goals. I think had a goal in the second, and started sparking up. And it was a really interesting day. Like I said, the stat line probably would tell a different story than what actually happened.
Before we move on from that, what did change in the defense?
In the end?
Yeah, well, no, in the defense, because everyone has been questioning it over the last few weeks. There was, I think some of the analysis that I've seen is normally a Darcy Moore would get drawn up to contests and stuff, but it seems like he's still staying off and trusting the other defenders to, get the job done. Yeah. Is it a bit more of trusting each other, or was it something more structured?
Those players that played in the back line have played quite a bit of time together. So you got the Jeremy Howe, Nathan Murphy, Isaac Quiner, Darcy Moore. Those kind of guys have played essentially almost every single game this season together. Bar Jeremy Howe's probably arm injury at the very beginning. But I think those just have a real understanding of each other's spatial awareness and who's going to go, who's not, who's going to be the one to essentially move the guy underneath and the one mark out the back or whatever it might be. And I think that was the consistency that maybe we didn't have as much for the previous weeks that we kind of, was able to show on the weekend of just how powerful they can be and how influential they can be. Will Hoskin went back. He played really well also on the weekend, so shout out to him. But Isaac Quiner he killed it. He was marking everything. Dude's not the tallest guy in the back line, but he seemed
putting his body in the hole to get
Murph was
smashed.
The same. Murph went back a few times with the flood, and I was like, dude, geez, just no care for life.
Yeah. I don't know how you don't get shell shocked if you're Murph, but it's the courage of the man. Now I want to take you back to obviously the start of the game. First bounce, Mason Cox, Max Gawn, and start off. Why you normally don't take the first ruck bounce?
Well, Darcy Cameron was a bit ill throughout the week. I was sick the weekend before, so it was kind of
finals fever.
Yeah, it was. We're kind of just kind of laughing, I guess, of wow, of course, it's the first week of finals. We're both kind of a bit crook, but he was kind of wasn't feeling the best throughout the week and stuff. So I think he probably had a little bit less game time in that sense, and then they just started me in the middle and just said, have a crack at it. So. The first one got up pretty high. You kind of get to that point where you're up there, you don't really realize what's happening below you, and got the hit out, and I kind of looked back, and Max was on the ground. I was like, oh, shit. I was like, oh, damn, okay.
Yeah, it looked like you put your knee right through him. Yeah. It just set the scene for the first final. The first moment, the first thing that we're all tuning in. It's been a long season, all waiting for finals to kick off. First bounce. Thank God it wasn't one of those skew-if ones that they got to call back.
It was a bowler because they're too shit scared to bounce it in the wet.
Perfect.
Yeah, perfect.
Which they should
so
just
you know
keep
exactly
doing.
Where it was going. That's what made it easier.
And you just ran through Max Gawn. You've had some great battles in the past. That one where you kind of did something similar and kicked that goal on the run that you would kick 9 times out of 10.
Yeah.
So how'd you see your game playing out? Because most hit outs on the ground, pretty dominant ruck performance.
Well, he's obviously Max was a bit of a focal point for myself and Darcy. He's a hell of a player, if not he's, in my opinion, the best ruckman in the league, and by far.
And he still had a really good game.
He killed it. Yes, they said the first quarter he was a bit down, but then getting around the ground and stuff, he really made an impact. And it was we'd mentioned before, it was as soon as something would happen, you'd look up and he'd be 30 meters inside 50, and you're like, oh shit, I need to sprint after this guy. He just seemed like he never got any lack of energy whenever it came to running around. Now, it's a credit to him. He had a real influence on the game, and he was trying to will them over the line. I felt like he was just kind of everything that they kind of had hope for was going through him. But he was a bit of a focal point, obviously, on the day, being such an impactful player for Melbourne. So it was credit to him what he was able to do. And you kind of even after the game, some of the comments, you could tell he's kind of frustrated because he's like, how do you, in that position, you're Max Gawn, right? You've played a good game, but your team lost and you're the captain. So you're upset. But then you're also kind of well, I've done everything I can. I don't know what else to say kind of thing, which was kind of interesting. I guess his comments, he said it was a very Melbourne loss, I think it was, didn't he say? Which, it kind of shows, I guess, a bit of the frustration after of just not being able to get over the line in a very close game.
I think it makes for more of an interesting decision going into this week's selection. Sure. I think it's almost been 2 in a row where Max Gawn has played an absolute blinder, and then you've got this question mark. Do we bring Brodie Grundy in? Do we have Tom McDonald? Do we who? It seems to have constant selection issues at Melbourne at the moment, and in particular with that forward ruck role. So it'll be so interesting to see how they pull it out, because if they put in Brodie, you're thinking he's probably got to play more ruck. Gawn has to play more forward. Yep. Does that impact his performance? Is it more beneficial for the team overall, even if both of their numbers are like down?
It's a real interesting question. And obviously you got Ben Brown, obviously, too.
Which no one's talking about.
Which no one's talking about. So it's an interesting decision Simon's going to have to make. And it's kind of like a season-defining decision.
Yeah.
Which is kind of crazy to think that like one decision of like who plays or not might define whether or not you're going to get through to the next round and you're out in straight sets. So I have no idea what he's going to decide. It's interesting. Like I would probably pick the 2 rucks.
Yeah.
Because Brody's going to be able to hold his own in the IFL as a ruckman. He's a legitimate, bona fide ruckman. And then like over the weekend, you could tell they needed Max going forward.
Yeah.
So then it's like, okay, well, you just play Max going forward. You bring Brody in, like problem solved kind of thing, hopefully, as long as Max can make an impact in the forward line. But yeah, it's going to be interesting what Simon says and go from there.
What Simon says. Good one. Now, you came from the ground and in typical Mason Cox fashion, you were getting booed.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Pretty stock standard. But you were geeing up the crowd. You're giving them the wind up. Come on more. Just hook it to my veins. I love this shit.
Yeah, this was an interesting mistake. So I was coming off the ground. I didn't realize, I guess, someone had come off the ground before me, and this is after an incident that happened in the game. Braden Maynard had come off the ground probably, let's say 2-3 seconds before me, and people were still booing. I was like, fuck did I do? What's everyone hate me for no reason? So I was like, you know what, stuff you guys. Like, yeah, keep it going. Like, I sit on the bench, and Craig just kind of looks over to me and just kind of like nudges me and goes, mate, the booing wasn't for you, that was for Braden. I was like, yeah, that makes way more sense.
Stuff him.
I was like, yeah, fuck him, Craig.
The world doesn't revolve around you. Like, shut up. Yeah, it does.
It's quite funny. But yeah, that was a little nugget from the weekend.
Well, I guess while we're on it, we may as well talk about the Braden Maynard incident. How did you see the incident? I guess you can't really comment whether you think he'll get off or not, but like how I guess I saw it, obviously it looked like a footy act, fully extended smother. I do think that they need to stop showing this shit in slow motion because it paints a completely different picture. If you're running flat out as fast as you can and jump in the air with your arms extended straight above your head, it's pretty hard to do anything but continue in that line of motion.
Oh, it's impossible actually to change that line of motion because he jumped before the ball was kicked. So I'm not a physicist, Braden, but I'm pretty well aware that it's impossible to change the direction of where you're going in the midair.
Yeah.
Unless you've got some kind of jetpack on your back. But
he should have just kept going up. And there he goes. See ya, Braden Maynard.
Yeah, it would be interesting. Like my view of it whenever I saw it, like, and I hope that he's okay, like Angus Bro saw. Like
100%.
Like it was pretty kind of like confronting on the ground, like whenever everything stopped, and then they ended up playing on and had him kick the goal while he was still unconscious on the ground, which was like kind of crazy. But Braden went over there and like checked on him. Like they're mates from whenever they played footy, I think, growing up and stuff. So he felt really bad after it happened. But there was not really anything like that he could have done, I felt like. Like it just kind of was part of football, and unfortunately it just happened. And there's nothing that was malice about it. There was no intention to it. And it was just something that just happens in football. And I don't know how that plays out as far as, you know, what people's opinions are about it, but it is going to be a talking point for the next week or so, whatever it is. And it's going to be a decision everyone's going to have their eyes on, but we'll be watching very closely.
It is rough. And you hear things that's like, obviously we all like want Brayshaw to be okay and stuff, but you hear things that is like his concussion history get brought up and stuff. Yeah. Like one, it sucks for him that he's got to miss a week of footy, sit through and hear all this chat about him and the incident. But stuff like that has no real impact on it. Like it's not Braden Maynard's fault that he's had prior concussions and stuff like that. So I feel like for what is an accident and like a footy accident, it's just going to be a shit week for like a lot of people this week having to sit through all of this. It's apparently Bruz went around to check up on him and took wine and flowers, which is very nice of him. And self-admitted that he he's got white line fever when he runs out there, but off the field he's just a big cuddly teddy bear.
Yeah, he is.
So he went around with a bottle of wine and flowers. But the awkward thing, it sounds like Brayshaw had a bunch of teammates over at the same time.
Really?
So he's walked in with flowers and wine. G'day, fellas. I'll just leave these here.
Just pop these down.
You would be hoping Jack Viney's not there, surely. Otherwise, round 2, we're on, boys.
That'd be wild. But there was another incident that might go to the MRO. Now, Van Ruyen, also his hit on Dan McStay.
Which wasn't really talked about.
This was real clear cut of like, yeah, sorry, mate, you're getting at least a week.
Yeah, and he's accepted a week. I think a week is like pretty good. Like, I think miss a match for that. Dan came back out, which is like good news for Dan because there was a moment there where I was like, oh no, like this could be bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, not a good replay. Again, slow-mo did him no favors there. But yeah, I think you just take a week for that. And at least it marries up with Carlton missing Jack Martin, unless the lawyers get him off. But there's 2 forwards each team.
Maybe we need to call Carlton's lawyer for us.
Yeah, Braden Maynard. Braden Maynard should take flowers and wine around to the Carlton lawyers too,
while he's at it. Yeah, why not? Well, there's some other people I want to shout out that played really well. Bobby Hill kicked 3, providing a really good dash and speed, as we mentioned throughout the finals. That's
dynamic.
Big highlight. So both the Hill boys played really well over the weekend.
He can just set up stuff like his little deft taps and touches and kicks.
He's clever, isn't he?
Smart.
Another one, Pickett played really well. I thought like he had a bit of wayward kicking towards goal, but he at least was providing opportunities for him.
Dangerous.
He was almost like their most dangerous aerial player for Melbourne, which was kind of interesting as a guy that's that small. But he at least provided options and was giving him a bit of life all over the ground. And it was just an interesting day for the forward line for him. At
Fritch
the end
played
of the day,
pretty well for you guys.
Fritch had a few moments. He missed one out on the full, very clutch time. He had a free kick that was taken from him. So they played on, ended up missing that. Isaac ran down. I think it was rough. Langdon, which is a real blow to the confidence there. Like just frustrating for sure.
Claim you didn't hear the whistle, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you'd claim something like that. Yeah, surely. Steele Sabon, I thought played really well, but I want to give a shout out to Brody Marchek, Dan McStay. 2 big boys, not ruckman tall big boys, but playing in that key forward position. I thought like them in the way they handled Lever and May on the night. Obviously massive momentum swingers for Melbourne, locking down the back line. They were able to hold them to minimal amount of marks and were able to kind of limit their influence, and that's not an easy thing to do. So
is that a big thing about what you're trying to do there with when you're going up against Lever and May is just take away a lot of their impact?
Well, yeah, obviously, like they're a hell of a good players. So I think their body positioning, the way they can mark the ball and then they kind of swing off that and bounce off that is definitely how Melbourne kind of gets some of their, I guess, momentum going. But it just seemed like every time there's a one-on-one contest where Lever and May usually would win, they were able to at least half it. Like, and it sounds like not much, but that leads to us being able to gain another 50 meters or us being able to gain territory or something like that. And it seems like a small thing, but it actually makes a massive impact in the game. So I want to shout out those 2 boys, played really well. And then also the last one, crowd favorite, Old Guinea. Yeah. Old Guinea came on. Jeez, 4th quarter too, late up.
Crowd erupted.
That was, I think the loudest crowd got was Guinea came on the ground. It was wild.
That's pretty nuts. They kept cutting to him on the bench and it was a bit concerning. Start of the 4th, he was still sitting there, jumper on, just twiddling his thumbs, literally twiddling his thumbs. And I was like, maybe he's not coming on. Because I was thinking at the end of the 3rd, like, who's he come on for? Because, it was all going pretty well up until that point. Like, you're not going to take off like a Bobby or whatever that are like serious impact on the game. But yeah, when he got out there, he made impact. Yeah.
Oh, he got a hold on the ball, I want to say, which kind of sealed the game or helped seal the game. He just gave energy. Like, he was just jumping around here, there, and everywhere. And like, for the little amount of time he was actually in, you could see a difference that he made, which is a massive, credit to him after spending 3.5 quarters essentially waiting for his opportunity to get out there and show that energy and be able to give it to the team was a tick of the box from him, in the short amount of opportunity that he got. But massive credit to him. And yeah, that's pretty much the weekend.
It was annoying that people kept saying the inside 50 differential.
Nah, it is what it is.
Suck eggs.
A win's a win.
Off you go to the next round of finals. Mate.
Now, you asked me this, and I hate this because everyone keeps asking me this question. What's the day cost update?
Yeah.
And let's
because
be honest,
I've seen him running.
he is. He's running straight lines. I'm not sure if he started cutting and stuff yet. I'm not really too sure of the update. But this is the thing. Like, I get told these things based off what the media knows. So,
But you're out there.
I'm out there, and he looks great. He looks awesome.
So you've seen him. He's touched grass. He's out there.
He's in there probably training more than anyone else still, and he's like injured. So
because that's the photos that we keep saying.
He is itching to get back.
Yeah.
He, after the game, was like probably the most hyped guy in the locker room.
Yeah.
He was like, let's go, let's go. Like, we're all like exhausted.
Well, he knows you just bought him an extra week.
That's it, yeah. He's like, oh my gosh, I get better for another week. But he's running around and stuff, which is great. So hopefully, if he continues on that trajectory, I think we're predicting him to be able to be available in 2 weeks, which would be great to have the best player in the league back.
I saw Pendle's the second best player in the league post Instagram. Nick Dacos made Scott Pendlebury's Instagram feed, which is big, and you could tell Scott's excited when Scott's posting stuff about his boy Nick Dacos.
His prodigy.
He was like putting in speed work. I was like, geez, this is about the last time you'll be able to catch him, Pendles.
It was like, I haven't seen it in a long time, but apparently I think that's called speed work.
Got to get him while he's in rehab. It's the last chance you got.
All right, we'll go into the next little bit, what we look forward to this week. What do you got for us, bro? What are you doing this week?
I have a lot of things to look forward to this week. Today I was right up and about with the sun out, hit the gym, shifted some tin mace. Someone actually, I think they're stitching these shirts shorter,
here we go.
Mace, because these arms are getting tighter. But I'm going to try go camping this weekend.
That's nice, I think.
Yeah, which is the week just keeps getting better and better. We got mid-20s, which is going to feel like mid-40s. We haven't had a hot day in that long. But yeah, if I could get out there camping, I'm going to throw the phone in the river because I'm that sick of using it. But yeah, that's one thing, hitting the gym, getting back out there. I've been seeing a lot of people, when you start to go out, I'll be driving my van home with, whatever on the radio, just in a depressed state, just all alone.
With iHeartRadio on the radio.
Yeah, they'll be playing something up and about, but I'll just be staring at my steering wheel, thinking how lonely I am. You look outside and there's just couples all coupled up going to restaurants and bars and enjoying life.
Not for long.
Not for long, mate, because we're fucking getting back out there.
Hibernation winter.
I got a couple weeks left. Footy can kick rocks because I'll be out there just giving finger guns to people as I'm walking down the street, living my life. Can't wait for that, mate.
Well, I'm going to say my thing I'm looking forward to is a week off because I have not...
Another one.
Essentially 2 games in a month is what we'll be playing. But I have actually never been able to have a week off during finals. So this is an interesting little experience for me to be able to watch other teams playing during finals while still being in it. Because we've always had to go the hard way. We've always had to kind of win from the bottom and then go all the way to the thing. So it's going to be nice to just sit back and be able to watch it and just go, okay, it's this team. We might play this team. We might play that team.
Especially when you're still in it.
Port versus GWS game. But it's kind of nice to just kind of kick back.
Yeah, have a week off and you got a game still to come. Some teams, they got 4 weeks off during finals, man. So
actually got like 20 weeks off during finals, mate. We'll go into the shout-outs, the last little chunk before we get into the games to watch out for. But my shout-out's going to be AFLW. Yeah, they've started up. They're in their second game over the weekend. Collingwood AFLW beat Freo 46-25. Shout out to these ladies. Sarah Rowe, Britt Benici, Brianna Davey. They have all been smashing it. And they're the people I always see in the gym after too. So it's great to see reward for effort because they're always doing extras. So to see them get the W over the weekend, them playing so well, that is my shout out of the week.
Good to see Brianna Davey out there after so long off.
Oh, dude, the ACL and everything else. And she loves football, lives and breathes it. So it's great to see her
has a lot of adversity as well. Sarah Rowe, X Factor. I like watching Sarah.
Gotta love the internationals.
But Brianna Davey, I watched that first round and it just annihilated the competition. It was good to see. Now I'm going to put this one out there. Ryan Pappenhouse.
Yes.
I just want to say a massive prayers up. And a big shout out to him because a long time out shattered his kneecap to a million pieces. His kneecap was just dust and he went through the whole long, hard road of coming back from that and second game back from return and broke his ankle and had to get stretchered off. And obviously I do a podcast with him and he's like, I'm coming back for the podcast, going to finish off the year.
Good man.
So a massive shout out to him and hopefully he gets well soon.
Yeah, it's a tough thing, and footy is a brutal sport, as we always say. And hopefully he gets better. He's a really nice fella, just absolute legend. So hopefully he's back out there as one of the best players in the league and showing his capabilities.
Get the mullet back out there.
That's it. Gotta love a mullet, old Jacob Ryan mullet, you know. Last little shout out: Eddie McGuire's son is playing for Ohio State University, and I have to let him know that is a huge accomplishment. Well done, sir.
Was that the Buckeyes?
The Buckeyes. There you go. It's the Buckeye State, Ohio. But he's playing for the Buckeyes now over there, doing punting through pro kicks. So
that's so cool.
Well done. It's awesome. Great to see. There's so many people that are over there playing and have gone through that pro kick. Flynn Appleby, Matthew Goodyear, some ex Collingwood players.
And just studying would be cool.
Yeah, let me tell you this, Brayden. College,
I wouldn't touch any alcohol.
Great time. It's a fantastic time.
I wouldn't touch a drop. I'm there to learn.
Better before social media and phones got crazy. But that is a massive, massive well done to Joe. But we'll go into the last bit. What game are you looking forward to most?
You better be hitting the books, Joe. I'm looking at Port GWS because I can't not look at another GWS game. I'm hoping they get through this one. I was optimistic they got through the first one.
How are you feeling about your boys?
To make finals, big success because they were predicted to have the downturn.
Yeah.
And then I was very optimistic that they won the first week.
Yeah.
Now is icing. So going over there, I know that they have belief. I just got off the phone with Harry Himmelberg.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, and Himmers was like, mate, we can get this done. So I'm going to back him in.
Yeah, that's a direct quote.
Mate, we can get this done.
For legal reasons, that's not a direct quote.
I'll put that on the graphic. No, but I reckon they can get it done, but it's going to be a lot harder. A lot harder. Rosie, Butters, Horny Frank, we talk about him every week.
Yeah.
But, they just keep getting it done at the Fortress. So they've gone from Brisbane's Fortress, then they go over to the Fortress.
Like that.
But, yeah, it's GWS. Anytime, any day, anywhere.
How good.
Why not us?
Yeah, it's going to be, I'll definitely obviously be watching that one with the winner to be playing us in the next round. But I want to see this Carlton versus Melbourne because there are matchups all over this. We've got May/Lieber versus Curnow. Curnow, not the greatest game with one goal, but still played all right, but didn't kick the goals that we probably thought.
No Harry?
No Harry, yep. And then Petrarca versus Cripps.
Both banged up.
What did you do? What
did you do to his leg? I saw he's limping after you cannonballed into the poor bloke.
Me, and then I tried to pick up the ball, and then I happened to fall on his leg.
Footy accidents. Okay. Footy accidents.
It was a footy act.
They happen.
But it's going to be a great game, I think, and it's obviously
he's going to pull out your tape for the tribunal.
What's this?
Braden Maynard's footy accidents. They happen, and then he's going to show your tape.
Mason Cox.
Say nothing to answer for. Nothing to answer for.
But no, it's going to be a great game, and obviously we'll be watching to see who Melbourne picks, and if they change the selection, but. It's going to be so interesting. I think this game is defining for Melbourne's future. It's defining for Carlton's future and whether or not they can live up in finals to a big game still. They won obviously last week. Massive tick for them after 10 years of being out of finals. And if they can continue this trajectory, it's going to be so interesting to watch this game and see kind of how it all lands.
If either team loses this one, were they expected to do more? I reckon Carlton's expectations shifted during the year, but pre-season, everyone was very optimistic that they could do some real damage and probably finish top 4. Melbourne could be staring down the barrel at 2 straight back-to-back losses in finals.
Yeah. I think if Carlton loses, Carlton fans have had that enjoyment of winning a final.
They want a final.
Right. They won a final after all these years, and they're going to have that to kind of just enjoy for a bit, And
shift
now
the expectation of next year.
That'll just make them live with a smile on their face for a bit. So I don't think they'll be looking at it as not a success. Yeah. Melbourne having the double chance, I think you'd be look back and say it's a bit of an opportunity missed. Not to say the season was not a good season for them. They played really well, but to go out in straight sets, as anyone would be, it would be quite frustrating knowing that you had 2 chances to be able to move on in finals.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like just for them is that everyone talks about you want to be prime and building when you hit finals. And their team's just, it's a bit banged up at the moment. So it'll be interesting to see. And then obviously, if we'll all be watching this tribunal with the Carlton lawyer and see how that pans out. it's very interesting. I reckon that one's more interesting just purely on selection.
Yeah.
I think Port...
Selection and matchups, I feel like it's going to be so interesting to watch.
I think Port GWS, they're both in pretty decent nick. So hopefully they go out there and just have an awesome game.
Oh, it's gonna be a great weekend of footy, Braden. That's something we can guarantee, I feel like.
Did you get your teeth whitened?
Did I?
They're very white.
Are they?
I'm just asking.
Compliments, sir.
I'm just asking.
All right. Well, on that,
I want to go to the same guy. That's what I want to get to.
Well, no, I haven't. But on that compliment, thank you. The glasses and the arms are looking big, bro.
Thanks. That's what I was fishing for another one in return.
All right, we'll finish up the podcast, everyone. Thanks so much for listening. Like we said, a massive week of football ahead. And next week, we will be previewing the last 2 games before the grand final match. And it's going to be a big next couple weeks. So make sure you're tuned in, everything else. But a massive thank you, like I said, for tuning in this week. And there is plenty more to come in the future. So subscribe, like, all that good jazz on socials and whatnot, and Apple and Spotify and iHeart and all these different places, because there's a million places to consume media nowadays.
We're just building.
We're building.
We're 2 weeks of building for this big prelim, and then who knows?
That's
like your coach Fly said, we can
anything is possible.
We can just enjoy these things. We can enjoy it. We can get around it. We're in a prelim, baby.
All right. Well, that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks so much for listening. We'll chat to you soon.
See ya.